I never used to believe in ghosts. Not in the way people talk about them on late-night radio shows or in grainy YouTube videos. I believed in grief, in trauma, in how the mind copes when it can't make sense of something. But spirits, hauntings, that was the kind of stuff patients talked about after too many painkillers or nurses joked about during night shifts to stay awake. But that was before level 3, before the summer of 2022. Before I found myself sitting in my car outside Mayfield General, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, praying for the strength to walk back inside. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Daniel Keys. I'm 42, and I've been an RN for nearly 17 years. I started in trauma, bounced around ICU and ER, and ended up in general medical surgical at Mayfield General Hospital in the foothills of North Carolina. Mayfield's not big. Population, maybe 12,000 if you count the surrounding hollers and mountain roads. But the hospital? It's the kind of place where you end up sooner or later, whether it's a broken ankle from deer season or something more serious like sepsis or a stroke. I moved to Mayfield in 2018 after my wife, Joanna, died in a car wreck back in Asheville. She was a school librarian, kind eyes, dry sense of humor. She was 6 months pregnant when the drunk driver ran a red light. I lost them both. After that, I couldn't stay in that house. Too many reminders. The sound of her mug clicking against the counter, the faint perfume in the hall closet. I packed up, transferred jobs, and bought a fixer-upper cabin on the outskirts of Mayfield. Thought maybe the quiet would help. I was wrong. Mayfield General has 5 floors, emergency and imaging on the first, ORs and ICU on 2, med-surg on 3, and psych and administration above that. The 3rd floor had always been my home base. Room 301 through 326, a horseshoe layout with a nurse's station in the middle and double doors on each end, kept locked after hours. That summer we were understaffed like every other hospital in the country. COVID had burned out half the older nurses, and the new grads barely lasted 6 months. I was working 412s a week, mostly nights, floating between patients with kidney failure, post-op recoveries, the usual. What changed everything was a patient named Ethel Langston. She was 87, admitted with CHF exacerbation. Tiny woman. White hair done in a bun, like she was still waiting for church choir to start. Labeled as pleasantly confused in her chart, but sweet. She always smiled when I walked in and called me Robert for some reason. Her room was 318. That matters later. One night around 2:45 a.m., I was walking past 318 on my way to check vitals when I heard her talking. Nothing strange. We get sundowners, Alzheimer's patients, all sorts. But it wasn't her tone that stopped me. It was the other voice, deeper, male, raspy, and angry. I froze. There shouldn't have been anyone in there. No visitors at that hour. No other staff assigned to her care that night. I pushed the door open slowly, heart thudding in my ears. Ethel was sitting up in bed, staring at the corner where the oxygen tank sat. She was whispering, trembling. I stepped in fully. "Ms. Langston?" I said softly. "You okay in here?" She didn't answer, just kept nodding like someone was speaking to her. Then she turned to me, slowly, eyes wide and wet with tears. "He doesn't like you," she whispered. "Who?" She pointed to the corner. There was nothing there. After that, things got weird. First, it was just Ethel. She screamed that night around 4:30 a.m. A blood-curdling sound that brought half the floor running. Said he'd been sitting on her chest. Said she couldn't breathe. The monitors showed nothing. Her O2 was normal. No cardiac events. Then a CNA named Raquel started refusing to take vitals in 318. Said she heard someone crying in the bathroom when the room was empty. Another nurse, Thomas, swore he saw a man in the hallway reflection of a window, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing hospital scrubs. But when he turned, no one was there. I didn't believe any of it. Not really. I told myself it was night shift fatigue, stress, the natural decay of an old hospital built in the 1960s that never got updated past its wiring. Hell, the lights flickered if someone microwaved popcorn down in the break room. But then patients started dying in room 318. 3 deaths in 4 weeks. Ethel was the first. Cardiac arrest, sudden. No DNR, but we couldn't bring her back. Second was Arthur Meade. 70-second sepsis from a wound infection. Stable one night, dead by morning. Found in his bed with his mouth wide open like he'd screamed in his last breath. Nurses said the room smelled off when they walked in. Not like decay, like sulfur. The third was the hardest. A 32-year-old woman named Chelsea Rivera. She'd come in for gallbladder surgery. Healthy otherwise. Surgery went fine, but on post-op day 2, she coded. No clear cause. Autopsy said heart failure. Nothing made sense. All three had one thing in common. Room 318. I finally asked the floor supervisor, an older nurse named Janine, who'd worked at Mayfield for almost 30 years. She got quiet, like I'd asked about her dead husband. "You know the old story about level 3? She said, sipping her coffee. "No." She looked up at me, tired. "Back in 1979, a psych patient escaped his restraints, killed an orderly, then hung himself in room 318. They shut it down for almost a year. When they reopened it, nobody wanted to talk about it. Management changed. Time passed." "You're serious?" She just nodded. "You ever seen anything?" She looked away. "I've heard things." I stopped sleeping well after that. Kept seeing flashes in my peripheral vision at work, shadows ducking into doorways, or hearing distant footsteps when I was charting alone at the station. One night, around 3:15 a.m., I got called to check a monitor alarm in 318. The room was empty, waiting on a new admit who hadn't arrived yet. When I stepped in, the lights were already on. That was weird. We always kept them off unless cleaning was in progress. I checked the monitor. Flatline. Makes sense, it wasn't hooked up. But then the machine chirped. Once. A heartbeat spike. I stared at it. Then I felt it. Cold air across my neck. Like someone breathing behind me. I turned. No one. But in the window's reflection, just for a split second, I saw a man. Tall, wearing blood-soaked scrubs. Eyes hollow. Mouth open like he was screaming. I stumbled backward, knocking the pulse ox monitor off its mount. It crashed to the floor. When I turned again, he was gone. That was the night I requested a transfer. HR denied it. "Staffing crisis," they said. "Temporary assignments only." I thought about quitting. I did. But I didn't have the guts, or the savings. Instead, I asked to float down to ER more often. Spent most of my shifts trying to avoid the third floor. But then came my final shift up there. The one that changed everything. It was a full moon night. I know how that sounds, but ask any hospital worker. Full moons are hell. People bleed more. Code more. Fight more. Room 318 had been empty for 2 weeks after Chelsea Rivera died. But that night, they admitted a teenager, Tyler Baines. 16th appendix rupture. No psych history, no drug use. Just a scared kid with a recovering gut and a Nintendo Switch. I was his nurse. At 2:12 a.m., his call light went off. I answered it. Walked into the room. He was sitting up, eyes wide. "There's someone in the bathroom," he whispered. I turned. Light was off. Door cracked. "Probably just the fan rattling," I said. Then we both heard it. A scrape. Slow, like a chair dragging across tile. I opened the door. Empty, but steam was rising. The mirror was fogged over, even though the shower hadn't been used. And in the center of the mirror, drawn in moisture, were 3 words. "You let him in." Tyler began to scream, and didn't stop. They transferred him to pediatric psych the next morning. Diagnosed with acute stress reaction. He wouldn't talk to anyone for days. That was it for me. I put in my resignation, took a job in a clinic upstate. Smaller pay, no night shifts, no third floor. It's been a year. I still drive past Mayfield General sometimes. They remodeled last spring, repainted the third floor, put new flooring in, made it look new. But I know it's still there. I've seen the shadows, heard the whispers, and every now and then, I dream I'm back in room 318, alone, the lights flickering, and someone standing just behind the curtain, waiting. Story 2. I used to think hospitals were safe places. Clinical, predictable, a place where bad things got better. That was before Chapel Hill General. My name is Daniel Reeves. I've been with the Chapel Hill Police Department going on 9 years now. Before that, I served 4 years as an MP in the Army. I'm not the kind of guy who scares easy. I've done domestic calls where I got spat on, chased suspects into storm drains, pulled bodies from rivers. But what happened on November 17th last year still wakes me up in cold sweats. My wife, Melanie, had just given birth to our daughter, Clara. 8 pounds, screaming lungs, perfect little fingers. First time I held her, I cried. I'm not ashamed to say that. Mel was exhausted, 31 hours of labor, and needed some rest, so I stayed overnight at the hospital. Chapel Hill General, 6th floor, room 610. That's where it started. I hadn't planned to be on duty that night. I was on paternity leave. But around 10:40 p.m., I got a text from dispatch. Possible break-in on 6th floor. Internal alarm tripped in old wing. No security on site. You're closest. The hospital had an older section, partially decommissioned, connected to the maternity wing. Nobody used it anymore. They kept the hallway locked. I didn't want to leave Mel, but she was asleep and so was Clara. I told myself it'd be 10 minutes, tops. I told myself a lot of things that night. I texted back 10:04 on it and slipped out of room 610. The corridor to the old wing was dimmer than the rest, one flickering light above the nurse's station. I passed a custodian who didn't even glance up from her mop. The doors to the decommissioned side were supposed to be badge access only, but they weren't shut all the way. That was the first red flag. I keyed my radio. Unit 17, in position at West Hallway of Chapel Hill General. North access to Old Wing unsecured. Proceeding in. No response. I tried again. Static. Okay, I thought. Maybe a dead spot. I pushed the door open. The hallway beyond was colder. Not freezing. Just enough to raise goosebumps. The lights were motion sensor, but only every third one worked. The tile floors had scuff marks like beds had been dragged out. Faint smell of bleach and mildew. Paint flaking from the walls in places. A sign above read, Room 601 to 616. I walked past room 602. Door open, empty. Same with 604. Then I heard it. A voice, faint, male, coming from farther down. Help! I froze. Not a shout, not a scream, just one word. Tired, like the breath barely made it out. I reached for my sidearm. I moved slow. Room 616 was at the very end. Its door was half open, like someone meant to shut it and didn't finish. The light inside flickered. There was movement, barely perceptible. I stepped closer. Chapel Hill PD, I called out. Is anyone there? Another voice now, whispered, female. Don't let him leave. That's when I should have turned around, but I didn't. I pushed the door open. The room was half lit, stale. Air tasted like copper. There was a hospital bed, old style with rusted side rails, and a man strapped to it. I don't mean wrist restraints like we use for violent patients. I mean straps like thick canvas, ankle to shoulder, dried blood on his cheek. He looked about 40, emaciated, bruises on his neck. He stared at me, his eyes filled with tears. You're real, he whispered. I keyed my mic again. Unit 17, I've got a live person in room 616. Male, bound. Possible hostage or abuse victim. Request EMS and backup immediately. Still static. I moved toward him. Sir, I'm getting you out of here. He started shaking. Number. You don't get it. You can't open the straps. She's watching. Who? His eyes darted to the ceiling corner. Her. I looked. Nothing there. Just a corner camera. Red light blinking faintly. I stepped around the bed, reaching for my multi-tool to cut the straps. Then I felt it. Cold. Sharp. Right behind me. Not a blade. Not metal. It felt like breath. But it was wrong. I turned. No one there. But the room changed. Lights dimmed even more. And then came the knock. From inside the closet. 3 short knocks. Precise. Knock. 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 Jesus Christ, I muttered. The man on the bed started crying. She comes out if it's opened. Don't open it. Don't. Click. The closet door creaked open by itself. Just a crack. Inside, something moved. I stepped back, hand on my gun. "This is Officer Reeves. If someone's in there, come out with your hands up." The man on the bed was sobbing now, full-blown hysteria. "Run! Please, run!" The door opened wider, and then I saw her. She was tall, slender, skin the color of wet ash. No eyes, just sockets, like they'd been sewn shut with black thread. Her nurse's uniform was decades old. Pale blue, faded almost white. Blood stained the front in a pattern I can't forget. She stepped into the light, head tilted. Then she screamed, high-pitched, inhuman. It hit me like a pressure wave. My nose bled instantly. My vision blurred. I raised my weapon, fired twice. The bullets passed through her, no impact. She moved forward, not walking, gliding. Her mouth stretched open, revealing no teeth, just a black void. And then, darkness, total blackout. I woke up in room 610. Melanie was leaning over me, eyes wide with fear. "You passed out," she said. "You were gone 10 minutes. What happened?" 10 minutes? I looked at my watch. 10:50 p.m. It couldn't be. I sat up. "Call the charge nurse. I need access to the old wing. There's a man in room 616, tied down. We need to—" She cut me off. "Danny, that wing's gone. Torn down 2 years ago, after the fire." I stared at her. "What fire?" Melanie hesitated. "You don't know?" She pulled out her phone, searched something, and handed it to me. "Nurse Lillian Crow suspected in deaths of 4 patients, 1987. All found in room 616, strapped down, mutilated. Nurse died in blaze during investigation." The article had a black and white photo. It was her. The same face, same uniform, same eyes sewn shut. I went back. Not that night. Not even that week. But 6 months later, I convinced the hospital board to let me in. The old wing was rubble now. A flat concrete slab behind the maternity wing. Room 616? Nothing left. Just a small square of scorched tiles. I dug. Don't ask me why. I had to. About 4 inches down, I found it. A metal ID bracelet, name etched in faded script. Michael L. Dorsey. The man I saw. I had it tested. Coroner's database confirmed the name. Missing person, 1986. Never found. I carry the bracelet with me now. Sometimes during night patrols, I drive past the hospital and see the lights flicker on the 6th floor, even though the wing's long gone. Sometimes Clara wakes up screaming, saying a nurse with no eyes came to visit. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear it. Knock, knock, knock. Coming from the closet that doesn't exist anymore. Story 3. I was 36 when I started working night security at Granger Memorial Hospital in upstate New York, and it was supposed to be the easiest job I'd ever had. After 15 years in corrections, 2 back surgeries, and 1 failed marriage, I didn't think I'd ever wear a uniform again. But when my union pension got held up in arbitration and child support didn't stop, I needed work. Bad. I figured a small hospital in a sleepy town like Bright Hill would be slow-paced, quiet, maybe even peaceful. I wasn't wrong, at least not at first. Granger Memorial sat on the edge of town like a forgotten promise. Built in the early 70s, it was one of those square gray buildings that looked more like a DMV than a hospital. 3 main floors, a basement, and a long-forgotten psych ward that everyone just called the 4th. That's where it started and ended. But before I get to that night, let me tell you how I got there. I was living in a small 2-bedroom apartment above a closed-down diner on Delmont Avenue. My daughter Nora stayed with me on weekends. 11 years old, smarter than I deserved, and the reason I kept trying. Her mom had moved in with someone new in Syracuse, and the court gave me 1 weekend a month if I stayed sober and showed up. So I did. I showed up. Granger was the first place that didn't care about my record or my limp. All they needed was someone to sit at the front desk after visiting hours, patrol every floor twice a night, and keep the orderlies honest. My shift ran 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I brought a thermos, wore orthopedic boots, and didn't ask questions. The hospital ran on routine. Nurses changed shifts like clockwork. Patients dozed behind plastic curtains. The only real noise came from the ER down on the East Wing. ODs, drunk driving injuries, domestic violence cases. You learned to tune it out. But there was one part of the building that nobody ever talked about, the north elevator. There were 4 elevators in total. 3 worked fine. But the one near the maintenance corridor, carved into the north wing like a cancer, was taped off when I started. Someone had scrawled "out of service" in Sharpie across a white paper sign and duct taped it to the frame. But the button still lit up when you pressed it. On my second night, I asked Janice, the nurse on telemetry, why nobody used it. She didn't answer. Just looked at me like I should have already known. 3 weeks in, I stopped asking. Then came February 12th. The snow hadn't let up for hours. Wet, heavy flakes clung to the windshield of my pickup as I pulled into the staff lot. Granger looked even grayer in the storm. I clocked in, nodded to Mike in receiving, and settled into the front desk with my usual thermos and crossword. By midnight, the place felt dead. A code blue had come through around 11:40, a stroke patient in room 221. I'd seen the crash cart fly past, watched them wheel out a body under a sheet 30 minutes later. Standard procedure, nothing out of the ordinary. Around 2 a.m., I started my floor sweep. First, the basement, supply and laundry, quiet. Second, the first floor, intake and records. Lights low, nothing moving. Third floor, recovery. 2 nurses on rotation, 1 sleeping patient. Then I took the stairs to the third and final floor. Except when I reached the landing, something was off. The hallway felt wrong. Not just cold, but still. Like everything was holding its breath. The fluorescent lights hummed, but it was the wrong kind of hum, higher pitched, like something straining. And then I saw the north elevator, the one that never worked. Its doors were open. Not all the way, just about 6 inches. Enough to see the pitch black inside. No lights, no movement. Just a darkness that felt present, like it was waiting. I stepped closer. There were footprints on the tile. Bare feet, small, like a child's, leading from the elevator into the hallway. No one under 18 was even admitted on that floor. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. My radio crackled. "Rick, you copy?" It was Janice. I pressed the mic. "Go ahead." Telemetry monitor just glitched. Room 309's vitals dropped to 0, then spiked back up. Could be equipment failure, but... "Room 309's been empty since Friday," I said. Silence on the line. "I'll check it out," I added. "Be careful." I walked the length of the hallway, past darkened rooms. The footsteps turned left at the bend. I followed them. The tile beneath my boots felt slick, damp. When I reached room 309, the door was cracked open. I pushed it gently. Inside, the lights were off. The bed was made, untouched. Nothing on the monitors. No sign of anyone, except the window was open. Snow blew in sideways, settling on the sill. And on the floor beneath it, a small, wet footprint. I turned to leave when I heard it. A soft, slow ding. The elevator. Back down the hall, I could see it. Fully open now. Lit inside. No one there. And then, just as I stared, the indicator above it flicked to 4. There was no 4th floor. Not anymore. Not since the fire. I learned about it the next day. I wasn't supposed to, but I pushed. Found an old janitor named Earl who'd worked at Granger since the 80s. Bought him a coffee and listened while he chain-smoked out back. "Psych ward, ma," he said. "Whole 4th floor used to be psych." Used to be. Shut it down in 93. Fire started in one of the patient rooms. Whole wing went up. No sprinklers back then. 8 patients died. 1 nurse. No one talks about it. I leaned in. Why? Because it wasn't the fire that scared people. It was what came after. Voices in the vents, kids laughing in the stairwell, elevator going up when nobody pressed a button. He looked me dead in the eye. They sealed it, welded the doors, took the floor off the directory. Thought if they stopped calling it the 4th floor, it'd stop being one. But that night, it was back, and I wasn't done. For the next week, every time I did my rounds, the north elevator was different. Sometimes the doors were open. Sometimes the button was lit. Once I found a child's hospital bracelet lying on the floor outside it. No name, just a date. 2nd December 1993, exactly 30 years ago to the day. I stopped sleeping. Nora noticed. When she came over that Saturday, she asked why I kept checking the locks, why I jumped at sounds. I didn't have an answer. By the following Thursday, I'd had enough. It was 3:19 a.m. when I rode the elevator. I waited until the building felt still, took a flashlight, and pressed the 4 that wasn't supposed to be there. It lit up. The car lurched. The ride was slow, mechanical, the kind of sound old elevators make when they're straining to remember how to move. Then the doors opened, and I was standing on a hallway that shouldn't exist. The tiles were old, yellowed, peeling, walls the color of dry bone. Beds lined both sides, empty and stripped, some with restraints dangling from metal frames. Every room had a number, 401 through 419, and it was freezing, the kind of cold that didn't feel natural, that made your teeth hurt and your breath vanish. I stepped out. The lights overhead flickered, then steadied. I moved down the hall slowly. Room 407's door was cracked. Inside, a child stood by the window. Bare feet, hospital gown, blonde hair to her shoulders. She didn't turn. "Nora," I whispered, not knowing why. She turned then, and it wasn't my daughter. Her eyes were gray and empty. Her mouth hung slightly open, like a ventriloquist's doll waiting for instruction. Then she smiled, and all at once the hallway filled with screaming. Rooms lighting up, hands banging on glass. A gurney rolled into the hall by itself and crashed into the wall. Lights burst overhead, and the girl stepped forward. Her mouth opened wider and wider, until it wasn't a mouth anymore, just a black pit, swallowing the light around it. I turned and ran, hit the elevator, slapped the button. Nothing. Doors stayed open. I could hear footsteps behind me, software bare. Then I saw it, a stairwell door at the end of the hall. I bolted, threw myself into it, and fell. I woke up in the ER, broken wrist, concussion, dislocated shoulder. They found me in the north stairwell, said I must have tripped. There was no record of the 4th floor. Security footage? Glitched? Elevator logs? Corrupted? My supervisor told me to take a leave of absence. I never went back. That was 6 months ago. I work maintenance now at a grocery store in Albany. Nora's doing better in school. Her laughs come back, but sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll wake up cold and hear that elevator ding in my head. I looked up the names once, the ones who died in that fire in '93. One stood out, Emily Ainsworth, age 11. No known family. They never found her body. Only a footprint by the window. Story 4. I didn't grow up afraid of hospitals. My mom worked nights as a med-surg nurse at one outside Tacoma, and I spent enough evenings in the staff lounge doing homework or watching cartoons on a tiny box TV that I started to feel more comfortable around IV poles and blood pressure cuffs than I did around other kids. I never had the stomach for nursing like her, but I always admired how calm she stayed when things went sideways. After she passed in 2017, pancreatic cancer, gone in 7 months. I ended up drifting for a while. College hadn't stuck. I was bartending in Spokane, living paycheck to paycheck, drinking more than I should have. I wanted out, but didn't know where out was. Then one night, a regular at the bar said they were hiring at the Granger County Emergency Communications Center. I applied, took a few tests, got the job. That's how at 26, I became a night shift 911 dispatcher for Granger County, Montana. Not glamorous, not heroic, but stable. Something I could hold on to. By 29, I'd settled into the rhythm. Nights were rough sometimes. Car wrecks on the interstate, old folks coding at home alone, kids calling and crying because their parents were fighting again. But I had my system. I stayed calm. I logged everything. I kept my voice level, even when theirs wasn't. And for the most part, nothing stuck with me too long, until the call came in from Granger General. October 19th, 2022. 2:11 a.m. 911, what's your emergency? Heavy breathing, not frantic, just steady. like someone was catching their breath after a long walk. Then a woman's voice, soft, calm, too calm. "They're walking again." I sat up a little straighter. "Ma'am, I need you to tell me where you are." "Fifth floor, room 534. That froze me. Granger General was a 4-story building. "Can you repeat that?" I asked. "They're walking again. He's got the mirror." "What mirror, ma'am? Who has it?" "The one with his eyes. They let him keep them. I told them not to." Her voice cracked, just barely, but not in fear. It sounded like regret. I pulled up the emergency call log, flagged the location. Sure enough, it pinged from Granger General's West Wing, which had been closed since 2020, after the flood. I'd almost forgotten about that. A major pipe had burst under the West Annex, flooding the lower floors. The damage was severe enough that the hospital shifted all operations to the East Wing. Admin said repairs were in progress, but everyone knew the truth. It wasn't getting fixed. It was too old, too expensive. They just locked it up and left it. I knew we weren't supposed to get cell signals from that section anymore. I routed the call to patrol, and within 6 minutes, Deputy Logan Rains was en route. Former Army medic, solid guy, didn't scare easy. He radioed in at 2:23 a.m. "Dispatch, I'm out front. Security says no one's accessed the West Wing in over 2 years. No active cameras inside. I'm going in through the connecting corridor. I'll check it out." I heard the door buzz open. Then footsteps. Quiet ones, muffled by old linoleum. And then nothing. Just the occasional tap of his boot and the slight crackle of his mic. 2:29 a.m. He keyed up. "I'm at the 4th floor. Stairs to 5 are here? This door's chained shut. No signage. Hold on." I heard the clatter of chain links. "There's something written on the wall here, like charcoal or something. Says don't follow the mirror. All caps." My stomach dropped. "Logan, back out. I'm not liking this. That wing isn't structurally sound and—" "Hang on, I'm hearing something. Movement above me. Someone's walking, slow, deliberate." He didn't sound spooked. Not yet. More curious. Focused. "I'm going to check the fire escape. If someone's up there, they got in somehow." 2:34 a.m. Radio silence. I called his name twice. No response. 2:39 a.m. I heard his voice again. Quiet. Muffled. Like he'd covered the mic without realizing. "She's here. Room 534, just like she said." Then, "There's a bed, rusted, old. Not hospital issue. Looks like something from a psych ward. Leather straps on the frame. The window shattered inward. There's broken glass all over the floor." "Logan, talk to me. Do you see anyone?" He paused. "There's a mirror leaned up against the wall. I don't know how to explain it. It's not reflecting the room I'm standing in. It's showing something else. Like a hallway, but not this hallway. Darker, longer. Someone standing in it." I sat still, breathing shallowly. "Can you describe them?" "Tall, wearing a hospital gown. No feet, just dragging. Their arms look too long, like, Jesus, he's looking at me." "Back out now. Logan, I need you to leave the room." He's raising his hand. Crackling static. "Logan, respond." 2:42 a.m. He spoke again. I saw myself, not in the mirror, on the bed, strapped down, eyes gone, mouth sewn shut, and I was smiling. "That's not possible. Get out now." He didn't respond. Seconds later, I heard running, heavy, frantic, slamming against doors, breathing hard into the mic. Then a scream. Not Logan, a woman, piercing, long. Then nothing. We sent backup. Sheriff Ellis personally led the search team. They cleared every floor, found the chain door on 4, torn open, rusted metal links lying in a heap. They found Logan's flashlight on the 5th floor landing, his body cam missing, his radio still transmitting soft static. Room 534 didn't exist on any blueprint, but on the 5th floor, tucked behind an old fire exit, they found a door. No number, no markings. Inside, a single rusted bed, a shattered mirror, and a name scratched into the wall behind it. L. Rains. Logan was never found. They combed the entire hospital, even brought in dogs. Nothing. His wife filed a lawsuit. It didn't go anywhere. The hospital denied knowledge of any fifth-floor activity. Their official statement claimed he must have entered a structurally compromised section and fallen into the sublevels. But the West Annex didn't have sublevels. They sealed it completely after that. Poured concrete into the stairwells. Put up steel doors. Said it was for public safety. I lasted another 3 weeks, long enough to hear 2 more calls come in, both after 2 a.m., both from numbers that didn't trace, each one from room 534. One call was just static. The other, a man's voice, calm, familiar. You have to see it. There's something you're not supposed to know, but once you do, it's everywhere. Just look. I left that night and never went back. I finished my psych degree, moved to Boise, found work doing trauma counseling for first responders. Most of them have stories like mine, things they don't talk about, things that don't fit into reports. Last month, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a Polaroid. It showed a hallway, cracked tile, rusted lights, a figure at the end holding something, a mirror. On the back, written in shaky pen, Room 534 still waits. You saw it. Now it sees you. They say hospitals are where life begins and ends. But no one ever talks about the in-between. The places meant to be forgotten. The rooms that aren't listed. The doors that stay locked until someone answers the call. So if your phone rings after 2 a.m., if the line crackles with a soft, steady breath, and a voice whispers, "It's walking again," hang up. Don't answer. Because once you hear it, it hears you too. Story 5. I didn't grow up wanting to be a nurse. My mother was a school secretary, my dad a bricklayer, and they both believed in 2 things, working hard and not talking about what hurts. So when I chose nursing over business administration at Northern Iowa State, it wasn't because I had a passion for saving lives. It was because I'd watched my father die slowly of pancreatic cancer, and no one ever told me what was happening until the very end. I was 31 when I moved to Lincoln Falls, Illinois, a town you wouldn't find unless you were looking for it. Population just under 7,000, 1 grocery store, 2 bars, and a hospital that still ran on paper charts. I needed quiet. My younger brother had OD'd 6 months earlier, heroin laced with fentanyl. Found him in his basement apartment after he missed our mom's birthday dinner. He was 26. So yeah, I wasn't in a great place when I applied at St. Florence General. But they hired me anyway. Night shift, med-surg floor, full benefits. I took the job, found a cheap apartment near Maple Avenue, and told myself I'd stay 1 year. That was 6 years ago. Most nights are uneventful. Admissions, meds, charting. We get the occasional drunk with a busted lip or an old man confused from a UTI. But it's routine. The kind of routine that dulls your edges if you let it. Until May 3rd, 2023. I remember because it was the night after my mother called and asked if I'd finally started therapy. The hospital was quiet. My shift had started at 7 p.m. And by midnight, we had no new admits. I'd just finished giving my last meds when the ER called. "Got a Jane Doe coming up to you," the charge nurse said over the line. "No injuries, psych's full, and we don't have a sitter. She's calm, non-violent, just weird. Says she only wants to speak with a female nurse. You good?" I should have said no. I should have pushed back. But something in the nurse's voice, the uneasiness, made me say yes. 10 minutes later, the transport tech wheeled her in. She looked mid-40s, thin, auburn hair, messy braid down one shoulder. Her clothes were disheveled, white hospital gown over a pale blue slip, but no shoes. Her feet were bandaged like she'd been walking barefoot for miles. Her eyes caught me. Green, glassy, too wide. "I'm Nurse Riley Cole," I said gently. "I'll be taking care of you tonight." She blinked. "Thank you. I knew you'd be kind." I led her to room 209, a corner room we rarely used unless the census was high. She walked slowly, one hand on the wall for balance. Once inside, I helped her onto the bed and hooked up the vitals. Normal. Blood pressure a little low, but not dangerously. She was clean, uninjured. No drug traces in her labs. No signs of dehydration. But her hands trembled constantly. "What's your name?" I asked. She hesitated. Then softly, "Margot." "Do you know where you are, Margot?" "A hospital," she whispered. "But I wasn't brought here to be saved." I paused. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" She turned her head, stared out the window. "I dream of him every night," she said. "His face is rotted now. It used to be clearer." "Whose face?" Her lips twitched into a sad smile. "You'll think I'm crazy." "I won't." Margot turned to me, her voice low and steady. "There's a man buried behind a place where things are thrown away. His wrists still smell like duct tape." I stared at her. "He was 30, she continued. "Maybe younger. Wore a gray hoodie, red strings. His mouth had a chip in the back tooth, and his left boot was always untied." I took a step back. Margot closed her eyes. "He's buried in dirt so black it sticks to your lungs when you breathe it in." "Where, Margot?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's a fence. Behind the long-term storage units on Birch Road, south side of town. You have to walk past a rusted dumpster, then 27 steps into the trees. There's a dip in the ground where the grass grows thicker. That's where he is." I wrote it all down. I don't know why. Habit, maybe, or something in her voice, something too short to be imagined. "You saw this?" "No," she said. "I feel it." She pressed her hands to her chest. "He begs. Even now. In the ground." I didn't sleep the next day. Couldn't. At 6 p.m., before my shift started, I drove to Birch Road. I found the storage facility easily. A long stretch of blue metal units. The south side had an old fence, half collapsed behind a rusted green dumpster. I counted 27 steps, and I found the dip, a shallow depression in the earth, maybe 3 feet wide, covered in thick grass. I knelt, put my hand to the soil. It was cold. I reported it that night to security, told them I thought someone might have buried an animal or garbage behind the fence. I didn't mention Margot, not yet. 2 days later, police tape covered the area. The body of a man was recovered 6 feet down. Gray hoodie, red drawstrings, broken pinky, chipped molar, wrist bones bruised beneath the surface. His name was Caleb Mercer, age 29. Reported missing from Rockford last October. Former warehouse worker, lived alone. Had no enemies, no debts, no known associates in Lincoln Falls. The coroner ruled cause of death, undetermined. Suspected suffocation or drug-related murder. No suspects, no leads, no reason he should have been in our town. And Margot? She was transferred out of St. Florence the same night the body was found. Her chart listed voluntary psych hold. She left behind no belongings, no ID, no medical history on file. Nothing. Her room was spotless, bed made. No trace of her in the system. I asked around. Nobody remembered checking her in, not even the ER nurse who called me. I took 2 weeks off, told my supervisor I needed to visit family. I didn't. I sat in my apartment with the blinds drawn and thought about her voice, and about the smell of dirt on Caleb's hoodie, and about the way she looked at me like she knew I'd listen. When I returned, room 209 had been repainted. Apparently, a pipe had burst the day after I left. Mold had gotten into the walls. The entire corridor was under renovation. I asked facilities if I could retrieve something from the room. They said the room didn't exist. Not anymore. A month passed. Then 2. I started sleeping again. I stopped looking at faces too closely in the ER, but I never stopped listening for her voice. And then one night, it happened again. 3:14 a.m., new patient, woman in her 40s, brought in from a gas station off Highway 4, barefoot and muttering. The intake nurse called me. She's not violent, just off. Says she'll only talk to someone who's met Margot. The words stopped me cold. I walked to her room slowly, and when I opened the door, she looked up and whispered, "It's not just Caleb. There's more." Her eyes were different. Her hair was black. But the voice, the weight of it, was the same. I sat down and reached for her hand. "What's your name?" She smiled weakly. "They change," she said. "But the memories don't." I leaned in. "Tell me everything." Story 6. I joined the Black Hollow Police Department when I was 24 years old. I didn't do it for the uniform or the badge or even the promise of justice. I did it because I needed purpose. My mom died of a stroke when I was 23, right in the middle of me flunking out of nursing school. It gutted me in a way I didn't know was possible. I dropped everything, moved back home to take care of my dad, and tried not to fall apart. Being a cop seemed like a way to start over. Structure, routine, a job that would put me in control of chaos instead of drowning in it. That was 6 years ago. I'm 30 now, a patrol officer assigned mostly to overnight shifts, which means I spend more time talking to gas station clerks and drunk college kids than fighting crime. Still, I like the quiet. Most nights are peaceful, but sometimes the silence stretches too long and too wide, and things slip in. Black Hollow's small, just under 15,000 people nestled between the Blue Ridge Mountains and a state highway nobody uses unless they're lost. We've got 3 schools, 1 high school football team people care way too much about, and 1 hospital, Black Hollow General. It's an old building, built in the 60s. Most of the newer expansions were added in the late 90s, but the core, the original East Wing, is still intact. Still creaks like bones when you walk through it. I never liked that hospital. Even when I was a kid, going there for a twisted ankle or to visit someone felt off, like it was too quiet inside. Not peaceful, just held breath, kind of quiet. Which brings me to September 2nd of last year, Friday night, 2:14 a.m. It had rained hard earlier, one of those loud southern storms that makes the trees lean and the gutters sing. I was parked behind the station, going through paperwork in the cruiser, when the call came in. Dispatch said it was a welfare check. Black Hollow General, East Wing, dispatch said. Security reports hearing screams on the 3rd floor. Wing is closed for renovations. No patients, no staff assigned. I grabbed the mic. Copy. On my way. Took me 7 minutes to get there. Security met me at the ER entrance. Guy's name was Tom Kinney. Retired Army, mid-50s, always carried himself like he was guarding the president, even if it was just a hallway of flickering vending machines. 3rd floor, East Wing? I asked, stepping out of the cruiser. He nodded, eyes tight. I've worked here 6 years, Officer Lane. Never heard anything like that. It wasn't a scream like someone stubbed their toe. It was long, wailing, like someone begging. Could be someone broke in. Junkie, maybe. He didn't answer. I clipped my flashlight to my vest, checked my sidearm out of habit. You coming? Tom hesitated. Tom, he swallowed. I'll walk you to the elevator, but I'm not going up. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor felt longer than it should have, probably because the lights overhead flickered every few seconds, like they were keeping time with a dying heartbeat. When the doors opened, I was met with stale air and a faint chemical smell. Renovation dust, I figured. The whole floor was dim. A single emergency light at the far end cast long shadows down the corridor. Most of the patient rooms had their doors open, and I could see tarps covering the beds, plastic over the windows, tape hanging loose from walls that were halfway scraped of paint. I moved slowly. Police, I called out. If anyone's up here, I need you to come out now. Nothing. I checked the first few rooms. Empty. Equipment gone. Some old charts still pinned to corkboards. Room 312 had a rusted gurney in it. Nothing else. I was halfway down the hallway when I heard it. A soft shuffle, like someone dragging their foot. Came from around the corner, just past the nurse's station. I drew my flashlight. Hello? No answer. But then, another noise. A low whimper. It sent a chill across my arms. I moved faster now, clearing the corner with one hand near my holster. The nurse's station was just an empty shell. Cabinets ripped open, dust on the counter. But there, sitting on the floor against the far wall, was a woman. She was barefoot, wearing a light blue hospital gown, arms wrapped around her knees like a scared child. Her hair was long, stringy, wet at the ends. Her face was turned away, but I could see her ribs rising and falling too fast. Ma'am? I kept my voice calm. You're not supposed to be here. Are you hurt? No response. I took one slow step forward. I'm Officer Lane. Can you tell me your name? She didn't move. Do you need medical help? She raised her head then. And I swear, I stopped breathing. Her eyes were white, not rolled back, just colorless, like the pupils had been bleached out. Her skin was pale, too pale, like she'd been locked in a freezer. But the worst part wasn't how she looked. It was that I recognized her face. Her name was Hallie Morton. She'd gone missing 13 months ago. August 5th, reported by her husband after she didn't return from a night shift at the same hospital. At the time, she'd been working as a night nurse on, of course, the third-floor East Wing. Her car was found parked behind the building. Her badge and purse were inside. We searched for weeks, no leads, no signs of foul play, just gone. And yet, here she was. Same gown, same face, same long scar on her right arm that had been noted in her missing person report. I froze. My brain couldn't catch up. "Hallie," I said barely above a whisper. She turned her head, smiled, but not like someone happy to be found. It was small, crooked, wrong. Then she stood and disappeared into the room behind her. Not walked, disappeared. 1 second she was there, the next, gone. I ran into the room, shined my flashlight in every corner. Empty, no back exit, no vents, no hallway door, just peeling wallpaper and a stain on the floor that hadn't been there before. Dark, wet, and shaped like a bare footprint. Back downstairs, Tom saw my face and paled. "What happened?" "I need access to hospital employee records, right now." I spent the next 6 hours digging through personnel files, shift logs, patient transfers. And what I found chilled me more than any ghost story. Between 1982 and 2021, 6 female employees had gone missing while working night shifts on the East Wing. All nurses, all around the same age, mid-20s to early 30s. All last seen wearing blue hospital gowns. None ever found. Each case had been handled separately, spread out just enough to avoid patterns. But they were all connected. I knew it. The next day I requested old architectural records of the hospital. Took some pulling of strings, but I found something interesting. Before it was a hospital, the land had been used as a sanitarium in the early 1900s. Black Hollow Rest and Recovery, a private facility for the mentally ill. It had burned down in 1949 after a patient riot, according to records. 17 people died, 9 of them women under the care of a doctor named Elias Grunther. Guess where his private treatment rooms were located? Right where the East Wing stands today. The hospital denied everything, said the sightings were hallucinations, stress-related or simple misidentification, but I know what I saw, and I'm not the only one. A week later, a janitor named Marcus saw the same woman on the stairwell camera. Footage showed her walking across the frame, barefoot, pale, hospital gown fluttering. No ID badge, no entry record. And when he went to check, no one there. We've had 3 more reports since then, all third floor, all female, all at night. They've sealed off the East Wing now. Official reason? Asbestos. But I know better. There's something inside that wing, something that remembers, that repeats, that keeps, and I don't think it's done. Sometimes late at night, I dream of that hallway, of the cold air, of the way Hallie smiled. Sometimes I wake up with the faint smell of antiseptic in my room, and once, just once, I found a damp footprint near my bed. Small, bare, facing me, like someone had been standing there, watching, waiting. Story 7. I never liked hospitals, not even as a kid. Something about the way time feels slower in the halls, the sterile air that smells like plastic and bleach, the way people talk softer, like volume alone might offend death. After my mom passed from an aneurysm when I was 12, I avoided them entirely until I joined the Ridgeside Police Department at 25. Now I'm 38, and I still get that old pressure in my chest every time I walk through a set of automatic sliding doors and hear that ding. The truth is, I thought I'd be a detective by now, but life doesn't always let you pick your path. I got promoted to senior patrol last fall. Not flashy, but it's honest work. Ridgeside's a small town in Vermont. Population just under 11,000. It's not exactly a crime hub, Most days, my shift consists of wellness checks, noise complaints, the occasional fender bender near the covered bridge. It's peaceful. Most people move here to escape something, which is why when the call came from Ridgeside Medical Center that night, it already felt wrong. It was a Sunday, July 10th. I was halfway through a slow overnight shift. My partner, Ramos, was off on paternity leave. I was parked outside Walker's Grocery on Main, drinking bad gas station coffee and watching the empty street. I remember the call time exactly, 11:17 p.m. Dispatch crackled with that half-static hum. Unit 4, Officer Neal, respond code 2 to Ridgeside Medical. Nurse reports suspicious activity on the south wing. Possible break-in. ER security is en route, but requesting police presence. My gut tightened instantly. The south wing wasn't in use. Hasn't been for years. Ever since the budget cuts in 2016, they'd shut down that entire stretch, rooms 201 through 216. I knew because my sister Kayla used to work there before she transferred to Burlington. She always said the wing felt cursed. Nurses whispered about the call bell in 213 going off even when the power was disconnected. Silly stuff, ghost stories. I never paid attention until that night. I keyed the mic. 10-4, dispatch, en route now. The roads were empty, just the distant hum of insects and my cruiser's tires against the asphalt. The hospital sat on a hill just off Millston Drive. White brick, 6 floors tall, with blue signage that glowed faint in the dark. The emergency entrance was quiet when I pulled in. I saw a nurse smoking near the ambulance bay. Blonde, ponytail, wearing Crocs. She looked spooked. I got out and approached her. Officer Neal, I said gently. You the one who called? She nodded fast. Yeah, sorry if it's nothing, just, it didn't feel right. What happened? I was finishing rounds on 3 East. I heard the call tone go off for room 213 on the south wing, which shouldn't happen. That wing's dead. It's cut off, no power, no call system. I thought maybe someone snuck in, a junkie or something. I told Dan, security guy, but he's not here tonight, so you called us. I finished for her. She nodded. I don't like being near that wing alone. I forced a half smile. Let's take a look. I'll clear it, and you can get back to work knowing it's nothing. She didn't smile back. The hallway to the south wing was dim. One of those old hospital corridors with mustard-colored tile and handrails along the walls. The lights were motion sensitive, so each section flicked on ahead of me as I walked. Click, 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 until I reached the old wooden double doors that led to the abandoned section. A faded paper sign was taped to the glass. Closed for renovations. No entry. Except they never did any renovations. I pushed the door slowly. It opened with a groan. The smell hit me first. Dust, old chemicals, that dry, forgotten air you only get in places people haven't breathed in for years. My boots echoed on the tile. The lights didn't come on here. Power was cut, just like the nurse said. I used my flashlight. Room numbers were marked in silver placards. 201, 203, 205. I passed a wheelchair turned backward in the hall, like someone left it mid-emergency. The air was cold, too cold for July. I turned the radio down. Something about the silence felt sacred, and I didn't want to disturb it. Then I saw it. Room 213. The door was cracked open, just a sliver, but enough. I stepped closer, no noise, no motion. I cleared my throat. Ridgeside Police, I called out. If someone's in there, I need you to come out with your hands visible. Silence. I touched the door with my free hand and pushed. It swung open. The flashlight cut through the gloom. Empty bed, cracked vinyl mattress, rust on the bed frame joints. The call button cord dangled off the side, unconnected to anything. That's when I saw the footprints. Bare. Dust disturbed in a path from the window to the bed, and then the hair. Tufts of long, dark hair on the pillow, matted into a shape. Fresh. I scanned the room again, heart thudding. Then I saw the message, scrawled in black ink across the wall above the bed. You brought him. I stepped back instinctively. My heel hit something soft. I turned fast, light catching a shape on the floor behind me. It was a nurse's cap. old, faded white, with red embroidery that read Ridgeside in thread, nearly gone. It smelled like mildew, and under it, a Polaroid of me, standing outside Walker's grocery. Tonight, I swear my legs went weak for a moment. How? I didn't hear the whisper at first. It came so softly, like breath beneath breath. Carter, my full name. No one calls me that. Everyone says Neil, or officer, or sometimes sir if I'm lucky. The voice wasn't angry. It was gentle, female, familiar. You brought him back. You weren't supposed to. I turned. The room was still empty. The hallway was still empty. But something shifted. I backed out into the corridor. That's when I saw the lights. Room 215. Its lights were on, flickering, even though there was no power to this wing. I approached one step at a time, radio in hand. Dispatch, this is Unit 4. Possible unauthorized entry at Ridgeside Medical South Wing. Request backup immediately. Static. No reply. I opened room 215. It wasn't a hospital room anymore. The walls were covered in notes, taped up in layers, curling at the edges. Medical charts, patient logs, x-rays with deep black tears running through them. At the center of the floor was a chair. Someone was sitting in it. A man, back to me. Skin pale, bald, wearing a hospital gown. I raised my voice. Sir, do not move. I need you to turn around slowly. He didn't, but every light in the hallway behind me went dark at once. I turned, saw only black. When I looked back at the man in the chair, he was gone, but the chair was turning, slowly, like someone had just stood up. That's when I heard it behind me, breathing, ragged, close. I spun, light up, a face, right in front of mine. Woman, pale, hair long and wet like she just stepped from the shower. Lips gray, eyes open but unblinking. She whispered, "You brought him back, and now he knows." I stumbled back, gun raised. "On the ground, now!" She vanished, like steam, and the smell hit, burned plastic, the same as Kayla's apartment after the fire. I ran, out of the room, down the hall, through the doors. I didn't stop until I was back in the ER, breathing hard, hands shaking. Later, I reviewed the body cam. It froze exactly at 11:29 p.m., just before I opened room 213. Tech said it wasn't possible, said the battery was full, the unit updated. That night, Ridgeside Medical Center filed an internal report. They never found the Polaroid, no fingerprints, no camera, no records of patients named Carter in room 213. But I know what I saw, and a week later, I found a new Polaroid taped to my apartment door. Me, asleep, in bed, with a hand on my shoulder that wasn't mine. I moved, but I still don't sleep, because every night since then, I hear it, just as I start to drift off. The sound of something dragging down a hallway, and a voice I haven't heard in years. "Carter, you brought him back." Story 8, I never believed in ghosts. Not when I was 8 and my cousin swore our grandmother's house was haunted. Not in nursing school when we joked about room 6B being cursed because patients kept coding in it. Not even after my fiancé Tyler died in a climbing accident 2 weeks before our wedding. I didn't believe in signs or fate or unfinished business. I believed in charting vitals, double-checking meds, and 12-hour shifts that turn into 14 when the new grad on nights freaks out over a blown IV. But that changed last fall, because after what I saw at Lincoln Memorial Hospital, I don't know what I believe anymore. Only that something is wrong in that place, and I'll never go back. I started working nights there in 2021. Small town, 1 ER, 2 trauma rooms, 4 inpatient floors. On any given night, we'd have maybe 10 or 12 patients, mostly falls, chest pains, drunks from the local bars. The hospital had a good reputation. Clean, quiet, steady leadership. But there was always one thing the staff whispered about when new hires joined: the South Wing. 4th floor, technically labeled as under maintenance since 2018. Water damage, they said, or HVAC issues. Depends who you ask. But people didn't go up there. Not unless they had to. I didn't either. Until the night they moved a psych hold up there. It was a Friday, October 14th. I remember because it was supposed to be my weekend off, but Beth called out and our manager guilted me into covering her shift. At 11:32 p.m., we got a call from County PD. They were bringing in a woman they found wandering barefoot on I-9. No ID, talking to herself. Scratched up and malnourished. She didn't resist, but she wouldn't stop repeating one thing. I left the window open. I left it open. I let it in. When Officer Langer brought her in, she looked ruined. Not in the way trauma patients look. This was something else. Her eyes were wide, not scared, empty, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. Her fingernails were chipped and broken down to the quick. She was wearing a hospital gown, but not ours. It was old, wrong shade of blue, and printed on the collar. St. Felix State Psychiatric Institute Street. Felix shut down in 2015. We sedated her. Dr. Abbas did a full neuro eval. She was non-responsive to commands but tracked movement. No drugs in her system, no injuries except superficial lacerations. They labeled her a 72-hour psych hold, John Doe status until we got ID. But all our rooms were full, and Dr. Abbas didn't want her near other patients. So he made the call. Put her in 418. No reason she can't be up there if we secure it. The moment he said it, I felt something turn in my stomach. Room 418, South Wing. I'd never even seen it unlocked. Security walked her up while she was still under sedation. They cleared the hallway, turned on the emergency lights, and left the call button active so we could monitor from downstairs. The nurse assigned to psych that night, Deanna, told me flat out, I'm not going up there alone. If anything happens, you're coming with me. I told her she was being dramatic, but part of me agreed. Around 2:41 a.m., the call light from 418 went off. I groaned. Deanna looked pale. Rock, paper, scissors, I offered. We both lost. The south wing was colder than the rest of the hospital. The lights flickered like bad hotel bulbs. Everything smelled like old linens and dust, even though no patients had been there in years. When we reached the door, we heard it. A voice. Not screaming. Not sobbing. Laughing. Deanna's eyes widened. She's still sedated, she whispered. I knocked. Miss, are you all right? The laughter stopped. Then the voice changed. Not the pitch. Not the tone. The person. You left the window open too, Emily. My blood ran cold. No one told her my name. I opened the door. 418 was pitch black. No patient in the bed. Sheets torn. Window open. Cold air pouring in. I turned on the flashlight from my phone. She was standing in the corner. Naked now. Back to us. Skin covered in fresh scratches that hadn't been there before. Her head tilted sideways, neck bent at an impossible angle. Then she spoke again. It comes when you're tired, when your grief makes cracks. And you, she turned fast, face twisted in something that wasn't fear. You let it in the night he died. She was looking at me. I couldn't move. I saw Tyler. For half a second, I swear to God, his face, his exact face, flashed over hers. Then she lunged. We tackled her to the ground. She fought like nothing human. Eyes rolled back, jaw wide like it was dislocating. Security sedated her again. They moved her back downstairs. 418 was sealed. That would have been the end of it. But the next night, I came back to find out she was gone. Vanished during shift change. No cameras caught it. Her ID came back the next morning. Veronica Lillis, 34, reported missing in 2016 after a fire at St. Felix. The autopsy from that fire listed her as deceased. But there she was, in our hospital, speaking with my dead fiancé's voice. I requested time off. Nightmares started immediately. Tyler knocking on our bedroom door, whispering, asking me to open it. Every time I dreamed it, the door opened wider, and behind him, in the dark, something moved. I quit the hospital 2 weeks later. Never stepped foot in Lincoln Memorial again. But I got a call last week from Deanna. Room 418's light came on again, and no one's been up there. Not since Veronica disappeared. They say the window is still open. that nurses hear laughter on the monitors when the wind shifts, and the psych patients, when they code, they all say the same thing. Don't open the window. Don't let it in.